Alright, well here it is, the Happymodel Sailfly-X. I'm pretty excited to get into this. Let's see what's inside. Got a bag, it's got a battery strap and a bunch of propellers. These props look very similar to the King Kong 65mm props. In this video I'm going to take a look at the two together and see just how similar they are. We have a second canopy. This is a lower camera angle canopy. The one that comes on the quad is a higher camera angle. I think this is the lower one. I'll run whichever one's the lower one because I generally fly my tiny quads slower, because if I want to go fast I've got bigger quads for that. We have a 3S 300 milliamp LiPo battery. What's interesting about this is if you look closely you can see space between the three cells. This is very clearly just three single cell 300 milliamp hour batteries put together. Normally when you see a multi-cell battery, the cells are really squished together and you can tell that it was manufactured originally with that cell configuration. This, in contrast, is very clearly just three single 300 milliamp hour batteries stuck together. And we have the quad. So here she is. This has the, I think this is the higher angle. Yes, this has the higher angle canopy on it. It's a little annoying that they didn't have an adjustable angle on this. I'm sure someone will come out with a 3D printed one, which I'll be swapping out. Everything on it looks pretty nice. I really like these little motors. They look like little jewels. Very cool. The micro USB port is easy to access, which is good. It's got a strap down here. This is just a TPU 3D printed strap designed, I'm sure, for these 300 milliamp hour 3S batteries. I'm hoping that this will also fit my 450 milliamp hour 2S batteries, because that's what I'm going to be flying primarily with this. Like I said, I am not really interested in flying these things at top speed. If I want to go top speed, I've got bigger quads for that. One thing I'm seeing that I'm not terribly thrilled about right off the bat is these screws stick down into where the battery is going to be, so they're going to be pressing against the battery, and even in a crash or a hard landing they're going to jab into the battery. So I'll be adding a piece of silicon mat here. I don't think one comes in the bag. No, it does not. So I have pieces of silicon mat. I'll probably also be designing and 3D printing a different battery holder than this. This one seems a little bit flimsy. Let's see how it holds the 3S. Well, yeah, when you jam it over the screws, it holds it pretty well. XT30 connector, they've got a, oh, that's interesting, a Rubicon capacitor on here for filtering. I was expecting to see a no-name brand, but it's a Rubicon cap, so that's nice to see. The finish on the carbon is okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. You know, it's got the all-in-one camera from them. I think it's a 25 milliamp only. It could be, no, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. This has the version 2.1 F4 board in it. And that's really all there is to it. I'm going to get the props put on this. I'll get it set up in Betaflight and connected to my transmitter, and then we will go out and fly it. I'll also swap out whichever canopy is the lower one. Something I was noticing as I was messing with this, there's quite a bit of flex in this frame, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, but it's interesting to see because the Primo from Gnarly FPV frame it looks to be exactly the same thickness, but if you try to bend this, it's a lot stiffer, which is really interesting. I don't know if it's just the design of the carbon fiber or what it is. I mean, they're a similar size. This is a tiny bit bigger, but that'll be interesting to see if it affects the flight characteristics or if it's the same. So this is interesting. Both these canopies, mine at least, appear to be exactly the same. I did some measurements on them and I don't see any difference in the angle between the two. Interestingly enough, you can kind of see how it looks like Happymodel tried to make up for the high tilt angle of the canopy. Maybe there were people complaining it was too high. They put a really tall spacer here and it's kind of squished the back of the canopy up. And that pushes the nose down a little bit, but it's not exactly the best way to go about it. So I guess, at least for me, I'm stuck at a fixed angle, which is a little bit disappointing, but that's something that can be fixed. So we'll just see how it goes. Let's compare the Happymodel prop with a King Kong prop. So right off the bat, these are definitely not from the same mold. They are very similar in length, similar in profile. The Happymodel mount is a little bit longer, and of course the mounting hole is a little bit larger for the larger diameter shaft on the motor. Material wise, it is a little bit stiffer. So I'm going to drill out a set of these and put them on there and see, you know, at a later date, and make a video to see if these King Kong props work as well, worse, or better than the ones that come stock. I also want to see, I'm primarily going to be flying this with 2S batteries because that's just what I fly with. And I'll try the 3S, but I probably won't be using it much. So I'm curious to see if this holder will take this race day 452S. And it does, but man, I really don't like those screws mashing into there. So like I said, I'll add a silicone pad there. A couple of things before we go fly. First, if you look in here, there are two buttons, one on the left and one on the right when looking at it from the rear. The right hand button is the bind button. As far as I can see, it's not labeled. The left hand button is the boot button. It is labeled, but it's kind of stuffed down in there, so it's the one on the right if you want to bind. Second thing is, again, I don't understand this. The motor beeper is not enabled by default. You have to go in there and turn the beacon on, which I don't really understand because there's no beeper in here. I'll be adding one, hopefully I can. I'll be adding one as soon as possible because I personally don't like losing my quads. Alright, everything's connected, everything's set up. Next thing you'll see is some flight footage. that was a flight of the Happymodel Sailfly-X on a 2S race day quad 450 milliamp hour battery. I'm not going to run this on 3S. I may try for a speed run someday when I'm in a bigger field or something like that, but I'll be honest with you, this thing goes as fast as I could possibly want it to running on a 2S battery. The run times are amazing. I don't know, I was getting close to 4 minutes out there. I probably could have gone to 5, and I wasn't exactly puttering along. So what do I think about this? I like it. I don't know how it's going to hold up long term, at least on 2S. The motor stayed nice and cool. It flies pretty well with the default configuration, the Betaflight PIDs. This mat with this TPU strap are not going to work for me. I'm going to either have to use the regular strap that came with it, which I may just go ahead and do, or I'll make my own TPU holder. This mat I think is necessary. I don't like the idea of the screws digging into my battery packs. Other than that, I don't really see a lot I would change. I know it's got a decent amount of flex to it, but flex isn't always a bad thing. The camera angle is a little high for the kind of just gentle flying around that I do, but I think I'll get used to it. I'll probably leave it like that for a while. So what do I think? Should you get one? If you are interested in, if you've got a Whoops and you want something with a little more beans, then get one of these. If you've got a 5-inch quad and you'd like to fly maybe in your neighborhood without terrifying your neighbors, get one of these. If you've already built, say, a gnarly FPV Primo, I don't know if you should get one of these. It flies very, very similar to my Primo with the Beta FPV motors. You can take a look at the videos I have on that. It flies very similar to that with the Beta FPV motors and the same 2S battery. If you really want to go 3S, if you want to do 60, 70 miles an hour, however fast this thing will go on 3S, then obviously this would be something that you'd want to look into. But I personally, if I want to go really fast, I've got larger quads for it. So this on 2S is great. I think the camera's nice. It seems to have decent color reproduction and pretty good reception. Antenna's a little bit exposed, but it's also quite flexible, so I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. I think this is a good quad. I think that moving forward, we're going to see a lot more quads like this, so this isn't going to be your only option in a couple of months, but it's very cool. I really enjoy flying it. This is probably going to be one of my go-to quads going forward. So thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe, comment if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you soon.